There are many myths and misconceptions about what works best in real estate. For example, there are those who believe that you need to be close to the CBD or buy in the expensive so-called prime suburbs to get the best capital growth. But the research data shows that this is nonsense. Many Australians think that you need to buy in the capital cities rather than the regional areas for superior capital growth, but the regions have been outperforming for many years now. The old paradigm that houses on land deliver better capital growth than attached dwellings like units and townhouses has been challenged by the results of the past 2 years, including recently during the times of rising interest rates. And there are those that cling to the notion that you have to buy in the biggest cities, specifically in Sydney and Melbourne, to get the best long-term capital growth. That one is a serious misconception as well. New research by the Property Investment Professionals of Australia, or PIPA, has revealed where the best capital growth has been achieved amongst the capital cities over the past 20 years. And the results will surprise many people because the two biggest cities rank in the bottom half of the table, and the best capital growth results have been achieved in some of the smallest capital cities. Now, the research was conducted by Peter Kaluzos, who is the former chair of PIPA and who is a respected University of Adelaide property academic. Now, Kaluzos analysed the Australian Bureau of Statistics median price for established house transfers or sales from 2002 to the end of 2022. In other words, a period of 20 years. And the data shows that Hobart is the #1 city for price growth over the past 2 decades by a considerable margin. Hobart's median house price today is almost 6 times higher than it was 20 years ago. Since 2002, Hobart's median house price has increased from $123,000 to $727,000, as Hobart rose from being the cheapest capital city for dwellings to being considerably more expensive than Perth, Darwin and Adelaide, and almost level with Brisbane on pricing. The next best in terms of capital growth over 20 years is Adelaide, where prices are now 4.1 times higher than 20 years ago, but followed closely by Canberra at 4.08 times and Brisbane at 4.05 times. Melbourne ranks 5th on the list of 8 capital cities and Sydney 6th amongst the capital cities. Now, Peter Kaluzos says, we always hear about the property markets of our 2 biggest capital cities because a large proportion of our national population lives there. But when it comes to performance over the long term, they are both well down the leaderboard according to my analysis. And he says, according to the ABS data, Hobart was the star performer by a country mile over the past 2 decades, which just goes to show that smaller cities, as well as major regional cities, can be sound property investment locations. Kaluzos says that our 3 biggest capital cities have also produced stellar price growth increases over the period too, with Brisbane prices quadrupling over 20 years, while Sydney and Melbourne's prices have more than tripled. And Kaluzos says, what these statistics also showed was that every capital city had periods where median house prices fell and rose or flatlined because of a variety of economic factors, including 2 major global events over that time period, which were namely the global financial crisis and of course the COVID-19 pandemic period. Kaluzos says, as property investment professionals, we always encourage property buyers to purchase property at a long-term investment and to do their best to ignore any temporary impacts on median prices or markets more generally. That's because, he says, as these results show, real estate has a proven history of performance over the decades, with our nation offering a plethora of places, both capital city and regional, where homeowners and property investors can strategically purchase properties. That's perhaps the biggest message in these figures. It's not really so much about which city did best and which one came last amongst the 8 state and territory capitals, but that residential real estate does perform over the longer term. And also that if you choose your location well, according to the evidence of major growth drivers, you can achieve superior capital growth.